I just started the recording, so welcome everybody here to today's session about what I would call the CSB Webstack. And what CSB Webstack actually means is technologies is basically the layers of technology that CSB provides to build applications that run via the internet. And there are different styles and there are like different ways. And I have located so far 4 different ways that you can actually build internet applications, and 3 of those technologies are actually CSB products. They are related to CSB products, and CSB has actually trademarked these products under the term CSBeverywhere. So CSBeverywhere is in CSB a suite of products that enable CSB applications to run on the internet. And what we will do here today is we discuss these technologies. We will go then through the differences, and then towards the end we will see like a few different examples on how these solutions are going to be built, and or how those solutions that I actually have are built. So in case you have any questions, always feel free to drop me a line in the chat window, and I will actually either open up your mic or we'll just read your question aloud and we'll answer it. So before we actually talk about the actual applications, we got to talk about the basic plumbing. We got to talk about how CSB is wired in terms of providing web applications. And what everybody has is running an ERP system from CSB, and most like new customers, I mean pretty much all new customers run on SQL Server. I mean, I know from our experience here and presence in the United States that we still have like a lot of old customers that haven't quite made the move yet to SQL Server. In my opinion, the most important thing to do for like an older customer that we have, which enables like a lot of functionality. But built on the ERP system, regardless of SQL Server, is like the CSBeverywhere stack. Basically the technologies that CSB provides to build internet applications. But if you do run on SQL Server, there is actually another way, or there are other ways that you can build your own applications, basically running live on SQL Server. I mean, here we talk largely about like providing reports on the internet or like information in different kinds of fashion that come out of CSB. There is, naturally the restriction that you don't want to build, even though you could, you don't want to build any applications that write back into the CSB database, because you would impair the functionality potentially based on what you are doing. And since you don't have the necessary internal knowledge, you don't know what is coming, how CSB is changing, that would be very bad to do. I mean, even though that CSB does not really like restrict somebody from doing it, but it is a habit that nobody should do. What CSB does is, in general terms, it has like certain subsets of technology that it exposes to the outside, that expose business processes to the outside to build internet applications. And each of these subsegments, of course, could require like additional webinars, and some of them actually have already happened. But one of the base foundations of this is CSB data trade, CSBDT. CSBDTs are actually like little modules that CSB develops that expose business transactions, or basically expose an API, like an application programming interface, to the outside, that in the most basic kind of way talks via like an ASCII file. So you can make an ASCII file, put some DT commands in there, and process that with EDI, and you would create CSB transactions. You would create master data, or you create an order, or what else there is. But CSBDT can also be exposed via CSB jobs and talk IP, talk Internet Protocol. And Internet Protocol is pretty much what the web is based on. So when you talk about Webstack, when you talk about any application that runs on the web, it basically talks via IP in some. I mean, your browser, your email, everything talks via IP, right? So you would configure actually DT modules via a job that expose via IP now these DT modules instead of an ASCII file, expose them so that you can talk to them via Internet Protocol. And these DT modules are designed so that they live answer. So you can essentially from there on out can say, I send via IP a request, create a new item, and I get basically back that that transaction has happened successfully or not, right? Or get like an error. But at that point in time when the job is done, it is exposed to the outside so that I can talk live with CSB. Now, to make that solution scalable, CSB can run multiple of those jobs. So just basically, I mean, depending on the number of users that sit here on the outside, I can actually run on one machine multiple of those DT jobs, or even like on multiple machines those DT jobs. And what CSB then provides is what it's calling the ZOA server. ZOA stands for Server-Oriented Architecture. And this is nothing but like basically an information broker. What that one does is it takes requests from the outside now and sees which jobs are available to answer that the quickest and brokers them and takes care when the response comes back that it goes back to wherever the information was requested, right? So the ZOA server is nothing but like a package broker that basically says I have here perhaps a certain number of applications that talk to it on one side, either via web services or via MERP, or and on the other side I have multiple jobs. So it basically takes a request, sees which job can do the job, and sends the information back wherever it came from. Yeah. So this one doesn't do really much except like brokering the packages. So then on the outside, now you have, technically speaking, within CSB, connecting to the ZOA, two technologies that are largely used only by CSB consultants, CSB programmers. We call him here Stefan Krage in North America. We have slowly growing, have John Bell growing in. Certain consultants build on that stack MERP applications. And MERP applications are then developed in CSB and run on the CSB MERP browser. Okay, I need to take that arrow out. So this arrow here that you see here on the bottom left, that is actually not right. I got to take that out. But this is actually the way that we actually build our MERP applications then inside CSB and provide a MERP browser on the affected devices to run these applications, and they go via ZOA back to the job DT and transact in ERP. Alternatively, so this is actually the way that CSB builds, and this is a browser application. We got to be careful when we say browser. This is a MERP browser. This is not like an internet browser in that sense. But it still is like an internet-enabled application because what we do with MERP, we talk IP. And, it doesn't matter as long as that would actually run over the internet, provided that I have here like full unfeathered access and enough holes in my firewalls that I can actually talk from here all the way up to, basically all the way up to the ZOA server, right? So, and the ZOA server has then the open way up to here. So you can actually have address translation, so you can have a certain level of security, but you can build MERP applications then that are pretty much updated via the internet, that run via the internet. When CSB builds other applications, and then it actually has a solution that is called CSB CMS. So here we talk about like a product suite that CSB has created, where CSB builds applications that are really like internet browser applications, and we will see an example of that. That then are published to an internet browser where a user consumes the information using internet browser. But to expose that also as in form of a programming API to the outside, CSB has actually sitting on top of that a CSB web service. And this, what the CSB web service does, it really like web service in the sense of technology. And I don't know if there are any programmers here among us. I mean, you can raise your hands or quickly chat me because I don't know who's really like technical that has looked at C# or has programmed before. I mean, this is really like a web service, and in the most traditional sense, as you know, most other ERP applications have as well. So the CSB web service provides to the outside that I can set web references and build applications that use DT. So the web service exposes the DT modules to the outside as a web service that I can consume in my home built applications. Yeah. So that CSB web service can now provides a standardized programming interface, and the customer can now essentially choose what kind of programming platform they would like to use to build applications. This is a choice that customers make, okay? They can choose, for example, I mean, I did here like everything pretty much with Microsoft products, so I used for my samples Visual Studio C# and used Visual Studio Web Developer, but there's nothing stopping you from using, you know, Microsoft Web Matrix, Microsoft LightSwitch, to use Adobe Dreamweaver, to, you know, pretty much use any kind of development tool of your choice. And if you use here, for example, like a development tool that runs on Mac OS X, then your target destination of that application may be like a desktop that runs on a Macintosh, right? Or if you use, you know, that, you may even reach an iPhone, or you reach like an Android tablet. Or, I mean, you make here choices by choosing what kind of development platform you choose, on what kind of platforms essentially these applications run that you are going to be built. Now, if you choose to use a tool that creates like an internet browser application here, then of course you most likely create an application that will run on most smartphones, tablets, and desktops. Again, it's a question of choices, because not all features that are, you know, for example, web developer supported are supported on all browsers. So, for example, if you would use here, you know, Microsoft Silverlight as a component to build a web application, that basically means it almost runs exclusively in Internet Explorer, which would mean, for example, you wouldn't run it on Safari iOS. So you would not run it on like an iPad. But if you would, like I did here, for example, use just like plain HTML and JavaScript, like a common denominator that is pretty much supported on all internet browsers, then of course you could create an application that runs via the internet browser on pretty much any platform. So in a nutshell, there are choices, and there are actually, this is, I mean, I love this. I mean, I can tell you this is actually the most progressive piece of software that I have seen in the history of CSB since I joined. Because there are really like choices. I mean, CSB historically, like when I joined them and like up to like 5 years ago, you know, before we had SQL Server, before we had a lot of these open technologies, you know, when you wanted to do something that, you know, the system does not really entirely support it, you were very restricted on what you can do. I mean, you had perhaps Python, but there wasn't really like choices, and not talking about like really building live applications. So when we are now talking here about live applications, there are already like multiple choices that people can make. So you have the choices whether CSB does a job, right? Whether CSB builds an application for you, which then largely will be via MERP or via content management, depending on certain things. And then if the customer has the option to decide, well, I would like to build my own application, and then we provide an API where they really are freely to choose what kind of development platform they would like to use based on what their infrastructure is and their devices that they run in their environment. Okay? So does that make sense to you guys so far? I mean, are there any questions? I mean, this is like the basic plumbing that is happening behind the scenes, and you know, how that CSB you know, stack of technology is built. All right. So what I will do is I will run through a few examples and explain you a little bit what the differences are and what the advantages, disadvantages of each of these individual components is, because it is most likely that you will not use all of them. And like I said, you know, people make choices and they pick certain things off that stack. And they all have to go at least up to here. So they all have to go at least, I mean, the ERP, DT, Job, and ZOA stack is always the same. They don't need to run on SQL Server, at least not on the ERP side. For the other technologies, this all works under pervasive as well, but certain restrictions apply, especially when you want to build something on the outside directly via SQL. Okay. And since this SQL, I mean, I will actually add that to the end. I did that yesterday as well. I will go down that path, but keep in mind when we talk about this connection and build applications via SQL Server directly, this is not part of what CSB called CSBeveryware, right? That is actually something that is like completely on the outside, completely independent of any CSB product. That is just the nature that we run on SQL Server that enables you to do that path. Everything else is CSB technology. So let's talk first about what we call MERP applications. And I mean, Stefan did a great job. I mean, he technically has almost done an entire suite for the North American market that covers like all data collection requirements. And I don't think, I mean, I don't know how many racks we have, mostly in further processor organizations. But you know what MERP applications are? They are applications that are built with a CSB proprietary application language, right? So CSB has developed like a development tool that is integrated in CSB, and that development tool enables us to create, draw these screens and build applications, and but they require like that you learn pretty much that script language. You got to learn DT no matter what, but I mean, here comes additional syntax and additional stuff at you that describes how these applications are built. And these applications run pretty much on anything that supports .NET, which basically means it's Microsoft only. So it runs on Windows, starting Windows XP, I think on the lower side, via Vista, via Windows 7, Windows 8. Windows CE 5, Windows CE 6, Windows Phone, pretty much anything that has Microsoft in front of them, it pretty much does not run anywhere else. So if you build like an MERP application, you are stuck with a Microsoft platform no matter what. So that is actually like the downside of those applications. The upside of those applications is that they, for example, have the ability to integrate with scanners and scales. So they have actually standard functionality that you can read a weight from a scale, that you can actually open a scanner, read a barcode, and stuff like that, which you probably never would be able to do in a browser application. I mean, the browser just like protects, protects very carefully on, what kind of things you can access to the outside. And I mean, you technically perhaps could build like a Windows Forms application, like a Windows desktop application that talks to a scanner or scale, but you would need to do all that connectivity programming yourself. That is, of course, very cumbersome. In case of MERP, it is actually part of the package. So it is I mean, pretty much like, probably the platform of choice when you talk about really like internal applications that require like a communication with certain peripherals that are in the system. So data and application both come via the web or via the network. So that actually means when you start up this application, you just install it once on the client. It updates the browser automatically, so the application checks if there is a more current one right now sitting on CSB and updates when you start up the application. It also takes the most current application from the server and publishes that to the outside. Technically, customers could program their own applications using MERP, but I have not seen any doing it yet. So, I mean, right now, as far as I'm concerned, and yesterday in the German community, I did not find any case either. It seems that there is like a range of I don't know how many, perhaps 5 or 10, or how many consultants that use MERP to build applications for their customers as consulting services. But I have not heard of anyone yet where a customer actually decided to learn that technology to build their own applications, right? So that is essentially what MERP is. So I mean, I would consider that, you know, almost like an internal technology that we use to provide data collection applications that run via the internet. They are very, very thin, so they have very little communication with the network. So you can actually run on a very low, slow data line. A lot of applications that talk to like a centralized system, and we have, for example, built like lots of data collection systems, large-scale implementations here, for example, at Lilydale, where they run now 6 locations all across Canada that have a central CSB system, and where they then talk via the internal network, you know, all across the nation with that thin client. You know, MERP is not required to just run on small screens, just to be sure. So you can actually also run like large screens. So basically the same thing. It's just like a larger screen. Actually, it's wrong. I got to say, you know, change that to large screen. But the MERP is like an application that can provide here, for example, like a touchscreen application, and that enables us to use other Windows CE type devices. So it is not like only restricted to the traditional, you know, handheld computers we use. I mean, they are larger, like forklift mount computers out there that we can use to run the touchscreen. They are mobile. They last 8 hours. So if you then have the scale connected via IP, if you have the printer connected to IP, you talk about really like a mobile labeling application that you know, pretty much does not require and does not really require like a rack that runs a touchscreen, right? They can also come with touch, so there are then cheaper options available that you can also quickly remove from the production floor, and you know, for example, run probably around $3,000 versus like, you know, probably twice that for a CSB rack. So that is pretty much MERP. Are there any questions about MERP? And we will see like later on a little live more about those applications. No? Okay, let's move on. So this is actually the CSB content management system. So content management system, and you know, perhaps some of you guys, I don't know if any of you guys here, especially from Scandinavia, are using the CSB content management, you know, the one that we actually drive the content that is actually appearing on our website. But you know, in general terms, it is actually very similar to that kind of tool. So what the CSB content management is a website development tool. And that website development tool, you know, does like, you know, some generic stuff that you can actually, you know, have your style sheets, and you can actually say, you know, what kind of logos you want to have in there, design menus and things like that. But then you build into these, into that content management, you can put in pre-built application components that CSB programs. So that is actually a choice for customers that, you know, say, well, we want to get actually presence on the web. We want to, you know, have like a certain application that is, you know, accessible from the outside for our customers, for our vendors and stuff like that. But that solution is, you know, programmed and maintained by CSB, right? So CSB builds these components and basically builds those based on what the customer requirements are. And, you know, you have like a conceptual meeting, you sit together with them, and CSB can do that actually very fast. So this tool set is, you know, using like a development platform that allows people to make very efficient and very effective, you know, applications available. And they, of course, can reuse some of the things they did for other customers already and have that in there. And this is actually an example of order maintenance for a DSD business. So we'll actually see how that works as we go through, and what the difference is to others. But again, the customer has very limited, you know, configuration abilities. So, you know, how this appears and, you know, what it generally does is all defined by what CSB actually has programmed and provided, right? And I would also say, even if you now, like later on, say, well, that's cool what we see, you know, the content management system here of the DSD business that I'm about to show you later, this is probably when you have like another customer that wants to use it, it will probably require some changes, right? And these changes would need to be defined, and you know, it's in the early stages, and then this suite would need to be adapted. But you're not talking about much effort to, you know, provide something similar to a certain client. Okay. Then we talk about, so any questions to content management system at this point? Okay, let's move on. This is actually an example that is actually built now. This is a homegrown browser application. So that is actually an internet browser application, right? So we can actually create like an internet browser application that uses, for example, here now the web service. And can you guys ping me on chat at least that I know who has like a little developer background and who has not? So just send me a chat, please, and indicating, you know, some developer background, and then I know whether I should show you the code behind there, at least run you quickly through that or not. This is built using a web service on CSB, you know, and uses a platform of your choice. And I used in this example Microsoft Visual Studio Web Developer. Actually, Benjamin Dahlmans did. So we actually worked jointly together, and he used that example to explain me how this works and developed that application. And I actually integrated that here in my demo environment. And this runs, you know, in like a browser. It runs in pretty much any browser. I looked at that. You know, based on the choices that I made in this example. This is built on ASP.NET, and that allows this web application, for example, it's very basic, just like an inventory lookup function, to run on like an Android, that runs on iOS Safari, that runs on Internet Explorer, that runs on Firefox, Firefox for Android. It runs on Blackberries. It runs, I mean, I haven't seen actually a platform that one doesn't run on. And that will be delivered via browser to, you know, pretty much anything you want, and customers program that on their own. So I still haven't gotten any chat about like what your technical background is. So anyway, then you can actually build homegrown web applications that are out of browser. And you know, just to clarify, when somebody says a web application does not mean it runs in a browser, right, in an internet browser. A web application means it talks via the web to show the data, or that uses like a, you know, web communication technology to do whatever it does. So when you talk about, here you talk about a web application that runs out of browser. Okay, so you have an application. This is the Windows Forms application that is like running on the desktop. So you would, you know, use again like, you know, whatever development tool you want, and this application would run on a desktop of your choice, basically by the choice that you make here, right? So when you make here the choice of Visual Studio C#, your target platform is probably Windows, and that application is now running on the desktop, right? And it runs on that platform, but the data come via the web while the application is installed and runs locally, right? So you have now a local application that runs on like any desktop application, except the fact that that application does not store any data locally. It's just the application, and it takes the data like currently live from the CSB system and shows it. And again, customers develop their own applications. Okay, so this is pretty much like 3 ways of how we provide applications via the CSBeverywhere technologies, or via the CSB Webstack. And I have not done anything on the outside here, like in terms of slides, because it doesn't really belong to the topic CSBeverywhere. But to the end, I will, you know, talk to you a little bit about, you know, building other web applications directly based on SQL. So, any questions so far? You are a quiet crowd. So you got to actually type the chat. I don't know if you guys didn't find the chat window, but you may need to open that up. You need to click on View Chat to open up the chat window to do that. Okay, demo. So let's start off with MERP. I mean, MERP is essentially or before we actually go there, look at the plumbing a little bit. Okay, when we talk about the plumbing, this is here actually our, the North American system, demo system that I use that runs on VM. And what we have in CSB here, for example, is first in the back end, the ERP service. And the ERP service is defined in CSB, as a job. So, and, I could actually technically take that job down. So I have here like 3 sessions actually running that I can see. This is a CSB ERP service that pretty much run now in the background that you just don't see because I have hidden. And they run in program 4.3, in program 4.3.6.1, they run those jobs, right? And you normally have like, when you talk about, especially when you talk about MERP, you have your own jobs exposing the different applications. You normally need one for each application that you run. You need a designated job. And the reason for that is that CSB runs these jobs with certain configurations. I mean, CSB calls them predominances. I mean, predominances in EDI are basically parameters that change the behavior of how the individual DT modules talk. Certain default settings that you don't want to put into your scripts, or how the application filters data, or certain other things. So these are called predominances, and it is likely that these predominant settings are different, for example, for a gun application versus like a touchscreen application. They both probably use like inventory movements, but they have different settings. So that's why you have normally per application like an individual job running. When you talk about the web service, I mean, you also need to expose the ERP application via for the web service, and the difference there is that in that instance that is actually unmanaged. So that basically means you don't set any parameters, you program everything the way you want it using the web service applications. And you find that these jobs essentially in the job management, they are normally set up here, right? And here are actually these 3 jobs that you see there are these jobs, and when you look at these job numbers here, right? So that is actually, these are the jobs that I'm actually running here right now in CSB. They're actually set up. I don't run them inside. I could stop them here now and just have a CSB screen open and start them here, but that is essentially all there is, right? So, and when you talk about so I could actually start them, but that is, I don't want to do that at this point, okay? These jobs are actually here defined. Here's like a detailed definition of these jobs, and these jobs expose them to the outside, basically to that port. See here like that port, ERP service 5001, for example, is then the port that exposes now these functions to the outside and is going to be used. Okay, so the ERP service provides now the business application, and then we have the ZOA server in between that now takes that, right? So you have 5001, that was the ERP job from one side that provides the application, and on the other side you would have now the outside. So you would actually expose that to the outside and would say port 5002 is a port that my MERP application talks. My MERP client talks with the ZOA server, and the ZOA server is just brokering the information. And here I can see that I have right now nothing connected to it. So, it is actually, as a matter of fact, if I would now open here my MERP session and say the scanner, we should see, boom, you see. Now it actually says that now here on that port, a client is connected. So I can actually see here in the ZOA sessions, for example, what is happening, and I can then see the application that is connected to CSB, right? If I would run, for example, touchscreen now, I could do the same thing, right? So I close it out, right? Let's say I run, so then waits now for reconnect, but at a certain time it will time out and will no longer show being there. But open the touchscreen application, for example, boom, now it actually shows here in the browser that there is now the touchscreen connected to the touchscreen application, right? So there's a touchscreen, and there is like one client now connected to that touchscreen. So that is essentially what that, how that plumbing works from that side. And then the MERP applications, like I said, they are actually inside CSB, they are configured. So I mean, all there is to run a pre-configured application is that you have here like this is all garbage. I mean, you have the browser executable that updates automatically, and then you have here like an XML file, and that XML file has basically the applications in there, saying like what is the name of the application, to what server am I talking, ZOA server am I talking, on what port am I talking to it. So that is all there is. I mean, pretty much those two files, the MERP browser, XML, and the MERP browser. I mean, the rest that you see here are basically cached files that get deleted. They can be deleted right now. Wouldn't impair the application. And the application, how it's built, is in EDI management, in EDI basis. They're the application server scripts. So here are the scripts, and when you look, for example, at the login screen here, right, you could actually here say edit, and you have here like an editor that shows a screen, and then you have here like the CSB code behind there. So this is basically the integrated development platform for the MERP applications, right? So where you have here like all these commands, and don't ask me how to read them and how to build them, because I have never built one. Okay, but this is really like an integrated development platform that talks into the outside and exposes that technology. There's lots of documentation there, and then you got to dive in, more about the specifics, how that works. And Volker Tebrat does a great job on forum.csb.de. I mean, it's all in German, but for those that speak German, he really like posts frequently on all the changes that he does on the development platform, and you can get like a documentation, you get the latest tools, you get information on how it's done, sample codes and all that. So that is actually a great place to go when you want to build applications. So don't want to talk too much. I think everybody knows about what these applications do for us. I mean, right now I don't want to basically go into, I mean, this is a technology session. We have right now here sample applications for inventory movements, for receiving, for shipping, and things like that. And we have for the guns, and we have our touchscreen, which we use for barcoding and scanning, which we use here in North America. There will be more applications that we build over time. We have right now, for example, the request that we want to build something for livestock. So, and if there's nothing else on MERP, let's move on to the next topic. Are we good on MERP? Any questions? Okay, no questions. Move on. Next, we did talk about the content management system in CSB, right? So, and how that works. Like I said, I mean, it is like in CSB, the content management system is built with pre-configured components. Okay, and these pre-configured components are part of what the programmer has provided, in terms of tools, in terms of functionality that you can use. I mean, this is actually right now starting up here, the website, so it takes a little while. When you do actually a live demo in this environment, a lot of times I actually start what I want to show like at least once before, but this one actually shows you like a little bit on what that is. Before we actually go into the application itself, let's perhaps go into the admin side so that we can see a little bit under the hood what demo at csb.com, boom, boom, boom. So I'm here like in the admin. So here is pretty much like the development. Here's basically the setup that happens in the background. So you have like a master, you have like, I mean, very similar. You have like different tools. You can set up menus. you have different modules, and then, you know, for example, this module order entry screen here, for example, has certain segments, and I can hit here the configuration, and I have, like, you know, inside this tool I can just place what modules I would like to have in there, and have very limited configuration possibilities. So right now it is actually, you know, I can actually have here a link. I can actually say how I link my archiving, for example, and here for commercial, these are my bill of ladings, and these are my bills. I have, you know, some configuration abilities, but I cannot really, like, do much in terms of the applications. You can also, for example, provide here an item sheet, which is actually product specifications, provided that the product specifications are part of the document management system. So you could actually build like an entire, I mean, this is designed to make an entire customer you know, service desk where they can, you know, do their stuff. And there is basically the setup behind there. So, but you know, how does that, you know, then work for in this example? I log on. Now, it's like I said, there's limited configuration. I mean, a large portion of that configuration is actually part of the CSB system. So whatever I do inside the application is transactional stuff that has been set up in CSB. So for example, now when I'm logging on here, I have in CSB, I have here dialog settings, right? And what I do in CSB is I say, I have here, for example, a user account demo, and that has a certain password. Demo, simply enough. But when I log on as demo, I actually am Daily Brands of America, and I am user number 9. Yeah, that actually means I link now, you know, certain attributes to that user that I have set up here. That now, and I can, you know, if I would like to have like another customer, let's say, if I want to have now a new customer, let's call him demo 3. And use one that I haven't done yet. So I would say password, and then I would say password demo, okay, you know, number of attempts, whatever, you know, don't want to lock him out anyway. So I have now demo 3. Now I would say I have here a partner. I would actually attach to that like a user, right, which is mandatory. So I got to attach a user that is required. And let's say I use here like procurement manager, and then I actually attach a customer to it, right? So I say this one is, for example, whatever, Freshway Foods, right? So, and I save that. You know, I always do stuff that I'm not supposed to do. I've never done this before live in a demo, but if I now would actually log in here as demo 3, in CSB, it would now say I'm logged on here as Freshway Food. So that's simple. You can actually create like a new user that now accesses your web. I mean, since I haven't done like all the other stuff for that particular customer that I would need to do to give him like you know, all the stuff they should do, I you know, log on here as my regular demo account, and that is actually Daily Brands of America, one of our clients, that I could look up. So let me log out here quickly. So, okay. So when you log on, this is actually like what the application would, for example, look like. And this has been designed, like I said, for like a DSD style business. That has been designed, for example, that it provides when somebody logs on email communication that is basically done via the CSB Office communication. So from inside CSB, you can create messages that appear, that the customer sees them when they log on. And then they have here like a catalog, and that catalog is defined in the customer conditions. And that catalog in this instance is, in my instance, is like meat and sausage, 2 different segments. So I can click on the meat items. And when I click on the meat items, I actually can see what is right now on order. As we see here, a couple of items that are not changeable anymore because they are after the cutoff date or before the cutoff date, right? So they don't allow me to change them. But here are like, you know, orders that I actually placed into the system before that I'm still able to change for Monday's delivery, for Wednesday's delivery. And so I can change them, or can actually like add other quantities to it. Just go hit. hit next group. And what CSB then does is it creates actually in the background offers. Right? That has been designed in this instance with the customer, the case so that they work on offers, which are technically their orders, and they be, as long as they stay being offers, they can actually keep changing them. But once they are really like technically copied to an order, they cannot change them anymore. So from there on out, they would need to actually call in. But as you actually enter them in here, you would actually see now in CSB in the background is program 578. You have now in CSB, you have here like, an offer created for delivery on the 14th. And there's actually, what do we enter there? Yeah, now the 5 and the 2 cases, that are actually the 5 and the 2 cases we entered here, right? So you have the ability to see live and do then the changes, and they are transacted live in CSB. There's a basket, that basket just shows like all the offers in like a line view, basically the same thing, where you can actually then jump back into the order basket if you want. You can see orders, so these would be actually already like converted over being orders. The customer in this instance can make a return announcement, so they can actually capture here and say like, I have a claim. They can enter claims that are related to shipments, and they create return orders in CSB. And then, whatever has been transacted to them is then accessible via the archive. So if they say like they want to get like, their latest invoices, it provides here like an application. They click on archive, and now I have here like all the invoices of what I set up like past 180 days in this instance. I click on the document. I can now retrieve the individual archive document. This is now like a bill, like an invoice, in that sense. And I can also here like say when I say commercial, hit search. Haven't done that yet, but that is actually then a TIFF document that shows me the bill of lading that has been scanned. Okay, so this is pretty much what that is. The content management system, like I said, this is a pre-configured application. There are other applications in there that are provided that technically there are 3 really like live running at an application. There's like an auction system that is in use in South Africa by Fry's Meat. So they provide auctions, and when they have to auction off certain meats in oversupply, they put that on their website. And then they have, they don't do it via eBay. Then there is another application for Iceberg where they do like integrated quality management with order processing, something ultra specific that I would not see that that is. And if you want to go out and do such an application, you would make a concept, discuss it over with the guys that develop these individual application components, and then get it going. I mean, conceptually, the concept piece is actually an important piece. Okay. Any questions to the content management system? All right. Moving on. Next one. Talking about web applications. Okay. Like I said, it's going to be technically here a little bit. I mean, we're going to always go like between the technical aspects and the practical aspects a little bit back and forth here. But I mean, this is like a basic, inventory lookup. So what I did here in CSB, I created like a little web application, and just show you like what that actually means when a customer builds like something simple like that. So I mean, this is like you enter a cost center, you enter a department, you click OK, and then it shows you like the total inventory per item. Pretty simple. If I would now open the touchscreen as a matter of fact and then hit refresh, you would actually see that inventory is changing. But I don't know if I need to do that proof here in front of this audience. But this is actually what this application looks like. So here's actually this is standard Microsoft stuff, right? So what I like to point out is here that we have actually a web service, right? And this web service is documented inside CSB. So when we actually go into this web service, the web service is here, and then I can actually see like all the different modules. And I hope this time it is running. Yesterday it actually budged on me, but there we go. So here are like all the different modules, right? And so what I do is essentially when you talk about them, here is a list of the modules, and you can actually access that. I mean, the inventory, for example, module would be here DT 0051. It has like these different functions. That is a request and response. For example, get Bestand. You can actually set a request and you get a response back. Yeah, with set Bestand, you would actually have the ability to import. So it basically tells you what you can do, or you can do like an update inventory price account. So you can build an application. And then within that, you can actually set here like, you see all the functions, you see all the documentations of the individual things. For example, here the query mode, how you would like to get the inventory. Is that detailed or total, or what you want to do with that. And then it basically has that is actually the request. So I mean, sort of like SQL. You've different fields that you need to fill to send that information, and then once you send that information, this is actually the information that you would get back, in the different fields. So this is actually documented in English inside CSB. Okay. So and what you do then is you pretty much set here like a web reference. So you basically say, I make here a link to that web service, to that WSDL document, to that module, and so that actually that item, that is actually what we looked at here, and basically say and make a link to that get Bestand function, which get Bestand is German for get inventory, and you provide that web service link. And once you have that web service link, this function, this basically provides then exposes the different functions. So you have now here like an object, and that object has like different different methods that you can use, and where you can then initialize the individual fields and start programming. And essentially what you do then is basically create a request, send it out, and then basically when you get that request, the request is actually here a little down, and then you process that request and put it in. So here's pretty much like the individual fields that you then get from the result, right? So here you create a data table, like a grid. Essentially, you make these individual columns on there, and then you actually make that request, specify that request and process it, and then use the cost center here from the screen, and fill those fields. And once you actually have that request finished, you get like a result back. You get a response back, right? And then when you get the response back, what you do is actually you fill it into the grid. That's it, right? So all in all, this is like 128 lines of code, right? With lots of documentation and a few lines of, less than 100 lines of code. And what this one then does, and this is all like, really like outside, very standard programmer stuff, nothing like, that is weird for anybody that would do that. And what this application does then is, exactly what you have seen, okay? You can build other applications, and what you can do is, that is perhaps interesting for our North American team. If you want to basically just make some sort of proof, we can actually make that inventory lookup here, 11010. So just to make the proof that I'm here not faking anything here, right? So I'm talking here via web. Then I have a similar application. Yeah, I have a similar application that is in here. That is actually an inventory lookup. That is actually pretty much the same stuff, except that is Windows Forms that runs now on the desktop, right? Shows me, basically the same thing, but here I have a lot date actually in there. So, it's probably hard to add up when we look at these numbers. But let's say we take the B floor in here, right? We have 3, 2, 4, 2, 1. That's 12. right? bfloin 12 cases, right? So numbers are identical, right? So, and if I would now open up CSB, so 12, right? Same beef loin, beef sirloin, 12, same quantities, right? So you have here 12, you have there 12. So inventory in CSB, inventory exposed over the web, running on pretty much any platform, inventory exposed on the Windows desktop outside of CSB. Okay? Got any questions? Any more questions? I mean, how that, how that works. The code example, for example, of this like inventory thing is I posted that on the forum.csb.de. So you have the code sample if you want to put it on your own demo systems, for example. You will find when you look up another code sample that some programmer in Germany provided. I don't remember. I think it was Patrick Lemestre. I'm not 100% sure. Where you can search for a customer, and that is a code sample that shows order information, where you then can see here the order information, what items are on the orders. It's like a little different application, but there are like a couple of sample applications out there. If you create some own sample applications, please pass them along to me, so that I can see if I can do something with them and perhaps incorporate them into the demo. So with that said, I mean, I'm pretty much done with the CSB web stack as far as CSBeverywhere is concerned. And since we are, I mean, I actually scheduled the session for about 1.5 hours. I wanted to talk to you briefly about the other stuff that is on the outside that you can do. Okay, and what I did here in this demo environment for me. I created like documentation. I mean, this is like built in VMware, and we made that so that I can actually get this like very same demo environment pretty much on any laptop that has enough hardware, get it up and running like within an hour, when I meet a person and when I'm able to transfer it over. But so that they have the exact same, demo capabilities that I have. And what I do here for example, I, document a little bit. And this here, for example, is like just built with, again, Microsoft Web Developer. And this is like just a standard grid that has behind there like a SQL query. And you can actually here very simple, sort by numbers or by description. So you have certain functionality. These are also data that are live out of CSB, right? And I have here different pages. And I use that to have made that for address and items, just to explain users of my demo system what is all in there, so that they can see what are the items, what groups are in there, what are they for, and so on and so forth. So like just a little documentation, but showing like if you would, for example, have like again a simple application such as that inventory that we have just seen, there would be like an alternate way of doing that, just as part of, via ODBC access, via SQL, accessing the data and visualizing that. That would not have to do anything with, CSB everywhere. Another thing that came up and that I like, I mean, and I don't know, I mean, people think I don't like CSB BI. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't really know what it does. And what it does is especially different from what's coming with SQL Server. But we had, for example, yesterday a case that was very simple, the day before yesterday, with Superior Farms. And what Superior Farms, for example, does is they run CSB as an ERP application. They want to have the best in class for their meat business, but they also want to have the best in class for their customer relationship management software. And they decided that the best in class is Salesforce.com. Now, the issue is that they now, do marketing and do like, customer service improvements and track that all in Salesforce.com, while the regular business is pretty much happening in CSB, order taking, order fulfillment, and all that. And And SQL Server, now the challenge for them is that they say, well, we want to have reports that are now accessible and identical between, that are used inside CSB as well as are used in Salesforce.com. Now, if you want to do such thing, you can use, CSB, Microsoft Reporting Services, SSRS. And Microsoft Reporting Services are a piece of software for reporting that come with SQL Server, right? And this is actually a pretty simple example that I created here that is just like, like North American map here, USA. And what I did here is, put like pin locations on there. These pin locations are based on address data in CSB. So when we look actually at CSB here, data I have inside CSB pin 10, oops. So I have here my CSB system. So I have inside CSB, I have my customers, and here is Freshway Foods, right? So I have here inside CSB the information on the area, right? I have here latitude and longitude, and I use that information actually to define where on the map the pin is. So I looked that up actually in Bing, Bing Maps. You can use Google Maps if you want, whatever, and put in the bin location, the geolocation. And that basically tells me where the pin is, and then I can click on that pin and open a scorecard. And this is also like standard report. What that does is actually passes along a parameter, customer number, Freshway Foods, and then shows me like the detail and has here, for example, some combined information. Actually, Freshway perhaps not the best example to show your report. Let's use this Lidis, for example. There's probably a little more. So there is like, whatever. You have charts, you have drill down functions, where you can open and close, and you have then here the individual open line items that are from accounting and their age. So you can build like, let's say, a simple scorecard that is describing like different information from different areas of CSB about a certain customer. So, and now what they can do in Salesforce.com, they can actually say, I put that HTML link, with a parameter that I pass along, put that in Salesforce.com. So they click on a button and it starts, via the browser request, the same report inside Salesforce.com. So, and I can also do the same thing that integrated in CSB. So I can go ahead and say, inside CSB, what I do is, make a little button, right? And then say when I'm here actually in my look at a certain customer, let's say now I take Daily Brands, right? Provide that to that. Now click on that customer scorecard, and then it opens up that scorecard now for that customer that I'm actually in the context of CSB, right? I mean, that is actually, much simpler because, I mean, here you talk about external stuff, no programming at all. I mean, if you like understand a little bit SQL and the report builder, I mean, pretty much like on the level of, let's say, an advanced Microsoft Excel user, you can build these things, and then a few lines of Python script then make it possible so that you pass along that URL. Here's what that actually looks like. You have basically an URL. You read out of the CSB screen, read that address number, pass that along so that it actually shows here that particular customer and the scorecard for that particular customer, right? So that is, the two examples of, stuff that you can do on the outside. Again, they don't have to do anything with CSBeverywhere. This is actually built then with like technologies that are just there because customers run on SQL Server, and that just comes with it. It's a gimme. It's free of charge, and all that. So with that, I would say I'm pretty much coming to the end of what I wanted to show you here today. What I will do now is I open up the microphones, and we can keep conversing and ask questions, or you guys can actually drop out of the sessions, whatever you feel like. So what do you guys think? Any questions?
I have a question to the content management.
Okay.
Does it have to be installed separately, or is it part of the CSB system?
Excuse me?
The content management.
Yeah.
Is it part of the CSB system, or must you install it separately?
You must install it separately. It has links to CSB. So what it is depends on the application. It's actually a very good question. But let me perhaps go here into the admin quickly. And what it is it is actually depending on the application. So when you look at the different module types that are available in, I mean, here's like the range of different modules. A lot of these have interaction with CSB that is live. So like, for example, that Edeka Bestellsystem, that order system that you have seen, that is tied to CSB and requires a connection. But for example, the Frey meat trading system is built completely autonomously. So you could actually run that outside, without anything of CSB, just by installing the content management system. And when you install it, it basically is two components. You have you get from CSB, you get like a zip file, which is pretty much the application, right? So that is actually the web application. You just basically extract it, put it on your web browser, and configure it in Internet Information Server. And that is actually then linked to a database that is actually part of Microsoft SQL. So all the data, all the configuration that you do as far as website design is concerned, right? That is all stored inside SQL Server. So when you look at the SQL Server, I mean, this is here my demo environment for on the SQL side. So I have here in my SQL database right now these databases. I have the CSB demo, that is actually the CSB system itself. I have one that is for the electronic content management suite of CSB. I have one that is for archiving, and then this web core database is the one for the content management system, and that requires like a certain set of tables, and here are the configuration for these all these different modules and all the tables that requires.
Okay. Do you use the report server on the same database server as the CSB system?
Yes. That is, I mean, that is for demo reasons. It's also a very good question. It really depends on what kind of box you have. I mean, I would not recommend doing it by default with a customer, but it basically depends really on the headroom you have, right? What kind of resource you have. I mean, there's technically no reason why you can't, but you need to keep in mind that when you run reports on report server, that they may impair the performance of the CSB system. Depending on how big the queries are and stuff like that. So you could actually drag down that all of a sudden, your scanning is impaired or your box labeling is impaired and stuff like that. So in a demo environment, it's definitely okay. In a customer environment, it really depends on what they do with the system and what kind of service they have. But as a general recommendation, what you would want to do is set up replication and publish the tables that you need to a different database, like a database warehouse, and then run your SQL, your reports basically of that replication.
Okay. Do you have customers who use the reporting services?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what we have, I mean, also just to give an indication here is, customer solutions here, let's look. I mean, this is stuff that our customers do here, right? So this, for example, is stuff that customers do via web services or via SQL Server. These are actually screenshots that I got from a customer of ours called Conestoga Meats. So this, for example, is production reports. So they created them a production report. They can interactively pick the calendar. It shows them what was produced on any given day by different product types. Or they created here like a yield analysis for their livestock piece. They created here like, this is actually their scorecard. that is actually built also, in conjunction with CSB, where they have then interactivity and web services. They can select a certain invoice here. They see what aging buckets from accounts receivable, stuff like that they provide. They provide their own spec books, so they have inside basically data from CSB. Here are like packaging components that come from the CSB recipes. Here are like the yields that come from the cut trees. Here are the different labor costs. They come all, these are all data that come from CSB and then are integrated here in like a web service application that uses web services and, some other external where they pull the pictures from that provides that. So that is for producers. There is actually one for, this is all livestock stuff here. Yeah, that's pretty much it that I have here right now. This is all like being done today. That's and they just go ahead and do it. It's like, it's there, and why not? They run reporting services on a different machine, but hit the live database.
Okay.
Right. But again, this is actually also a smaller, like a kind of a smaller organization that does that. Right. We have also customers that use integrated SQL. You know that while we are at the topic here, like 8440, right? You know that you can actually make embedded queries in CSB, right? IQ. There's actually like an embedded query that I made here for demo reasons, where I show my serial inventory. That is built with SQL that you can run in CSB, so you can substitute certain lists. Right, so, or let's say I have like another example here. When you look at the cost center master, and you have here that list that you want to see like F3, but you want to do something else, you can actually do IQ. You have a cost center list here. Now you have all the departments where you can sort and stuff like that, and then take it over into the screen if you want, or let me see what that was. Entry. Oh, info. So I can actually drill here into inventory. See? I can actually make here, for example, like a screen and then drill here into inventory. So I have here like my fresh inventory, right? Hit info. Have like, and this is all done with SQL. So I have now here like attached like my own my own SQL queries to a CSB screen, and then can use that and build like my own lookup tables and stuff like that. That is already all there in CSB. And we have, for example, also here a customer like Lilydale that makes intensive use of that. So we have here like these are all like SQL scripts, for example, that our customer Lilydale is using, where they just say, the CSB lookup lists, they are like, they suck for one reason or another, or they suck for their users, or they don't provide the information we want to have and stuff like that. So then they actually build here their own SQL queries and attach them to CSB screens or put them into the CSB dashboards and stuff like that. There's like with SQL, there is like a lot of stuff possible in CSB that you can. And that's why I actually said on the onslaught. I don't get customers that run still on that pervasive software because they cannot leverage that. They cannot do that. And the move to SQL Server is the single biggest improvement that a customer can do that runs on pervasive. It's the single biggest technology enabler that allows their IT people to just drive their entire IT application to a completely different level. Make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Hey, Patrick?
Yeah.
I have one question. So, like, moving forward, like, say a client base, as we're talking about pulling data, is this going to enable the customer to possibly push data, like say via web, like say they want to update like product lines?
Yeah. Like I said, that is going back to where we started. It's basically the choice. They are like the choice whether the customer does it himself, but DT. So when we are talking here, right, when we talk about the choices, so you make here the choice whether CSB does that, you know, in a browser or in a MERP application, or the customer does it himself via web service. In any instance, yes, they can, via web services, transact. They can, for example, do a price change. You couldn't build like an application like, let's say, a price audit, where somebody reviews the pricing of existing orders and you know, does you know, change them when they are wrong, and writes that information live back to CSB, and that is like an online application. Yes.
Very good.
So, any other questions? So, then thank you very much. I will stay online until you guys are all gone, and have a, you know, nice rest of the day and nice evening, especially there in Europe. And, you know, feel free to stay online if you have anything else you want to ask. Stopping the recording now.